And I've studied enough history to know, wow, this is treason. This is dangerous. This is what's happened in every other country over and over again, especially third world nations. And I came out and made films like Police State 2000 and others. And people keep saying, when's the martial law coming? Well, the martial law is coming when the TSA says, we don't care if federal law says we've got to have radiology tests on these machines. We're not doing it. We don't care if local prosecutors say it's illegal for us to stick our hands down people's pants. And FBI agents can't even do it. We can. It's an emergency. We don't care if you have a right to your bank account. It's an emergency. We're going to hold those funds. We're already being eased into this emergency atmosphere. They're never going to call it martial law. We're being just phased in incrementally into it right now from my research. Stuart, from your deep research, do you concur with that, that we're basically already in the first stages of what could be really deemed classical martial law?
Well, in part, what they've done is claim that through emergency powers of the president that he can do things that through executive order or by fiat that otherwise are nowhere near our Constitution.
Or if the UN gives him the authority, he doesn't have to go to Congress for a new war.
Right. So that's partly true. But true martial law is where it's the will of the commander on the battlefield. And they have made this claim. That's what Bush claimed, is that he can bring the international laws of war and apply them to the American people. That's martial law. That means that he can treat you the same as though he were a tank commander in the Iraqi desert and you're some local villager. His claim is he could do the same thing with you that he could do over there as commander-in-chief.
And there's a legal precept there, because, and explain this to me, because I remember 3 or 4 years ago, the head of the Air Force was in the news saying, we've got to use these microwave guns against the American people because under Geneva we can't use them against populations in Iraq. But he was reversing that, saying laws of war, if we can use them on our people, then
right.
that changes things somehow, and then we can use them on the Iraq.
Well, what he was saying was if we can use, and we can, supposedly, the laws of war against Americans who are unlawful combatants, then of course we can use them on Iraqis. But see, what they're doing, though, is they're just sweeping away the Bill of Rights. The claim is, like I said, is that they can treat us all as though we were foreign enemies in wartime and apply international law, the law of war, to us. And that was the undercurrent beneath the NSA spying on Americans, or in that situation there, they said, oh look, the Fourth Amendment doesn't apply to, the Bill of Rights doesn't apply at all. This is war. This is not an exception under the Fourth Amendment for criminal law. This is a whole new paradigm. This is simply the laws of war. That's the claim. So see what I'm saying?
And notice we have the drug war, and we have the war on illiteracy, and it's all for a federal power grab. They always use this term war
right.
As their excuse to basically have a power grab.
Well, they do that in conventional law also. The claim is, in the war on drugs, you must allow asset forfeiture, for example, to seize the proceeds of drug crime. Then they wind up using it against a man who was out, trolling for prostitutes, and they take his wife's car. That's what was the case the Supreme Court upheld. And so it winds up being for this particular really bad thing that it expands out. Well, the same is going on in the war paradigm. There's the normal legal paradigm where they've chipped away at the Bill of Rights, but now there's this war paradigm where it used to be you could only use the laws of war against a foreign enemy. They now say, well, oh, but this one foreign enemy was a U.S. citizen. This is World War II. The 8 German saboteurs, one of them was an American, he came ashore to blow up factories. Well, they tried him by tribunal, only one man. And then that case, that upholding of that trial of an American citizen under the laws of war sat dormant, almost forgotten, until after 9/11. Then Bush reached back and reactivated that idea and said, oh yeah, in the war on terror now, which could be almost anything, terrorism is a tactic. Now we can use the same claim power to try any American we accuse of terrorism.
And then at the G20 a few years ago in Pittsburgh, some of my crew got arrested. The military just went and told the local police that my guys were terrorists, and the police came after them and interrogated them and said, were you planning to attack the military? And my guys were there publicly with their press badges, they're interviewing people. And when they were arresting the college students hadn't even been demonstrating. They were outside at a park eating, and the police could find no one in Pittsburgh that dare break their Tiananmen Square type order that no one could be outside during the day or night, and they would just come in and attack the students with enjoyment. And they arrested Rob Dews over there running camera right now, and when they got him to an old prison. They had the military and police there, and were bringing in some of the protesters with bags over their heads, and the police were really enjoying this. And we got footage all over the city of kids even playing with balls outside at like 3, 4 in the afternoon, and loudspeakers saying no one's allowed to be on the streets. And we saw YouTube videos of women coming out of stores, older women with bags who'd been shopping, and they're like, "Officer, I'm shopping." And the cop says, "I don't care," and releases a police dog on them. So we're seeing this in Toronto. They did the same thing. A year later, we're seeing it in Pittsburgh, where they're setting the precedent in England, where they actually have beaten people to death who were just delivering newspapers. They just say, "We allow no one to be outside while the banker heads are meeting in this town." And the police from all over the country travel there to mix with the military and private contractors. And they were there snatching protesters randomly to terrorize everyone and throwing them into unmarked vehicles, speeding away. I mean, if that isn't martial law, Stuart, what is?
Well, they're behaving as though they were in a third world junta. And you can look at what's being done in Central America or in the Middle East or any place like that where there is tyranny, and that's the future unless we stand up and stop it. So one answer is to teach the military and police what is really constitutional and what's not, get them to stand down. But the other side of it is we have to stand up.
But that's my question to you, and that's why I'm basically interrogating you on these facts. I don't want you to go over the rest of them. Is I know a lot of police and military individually are good people. I've talked to them. But when they get into mob psychology, they followed orders in Katrina to go to the high and dry areas and take
Not all of them did.
I know some said, "No, I want you to speak to that."
Right.
And the media didn't want us to know about that. And that was a beta test. But when I see something like what happened in Pittsburgh, the military and the police waged war against the people, and it was all orchestrated to chill political free speech in this country. So respond to that.
Well, sure, they're being conditioned. I mean, they've been conditioned for decades to serve under UN command, for example, and you had only Michael New, one man out of his whole battalion, stood up and said no. And so we're trying to counter that conditioning. And now they're being conditioned to be used here at home. Not just Katrina, but also, as you know, Northcom and the 1st Combat Brigade of the 3rd Infantry Division is being assigned here at home.
And has signed deals to use foreign troops in America.
Well, we had some during Katrina. There were Mexican troops that assisted. So of course, before, you exposed a long time ago these agreements with Canada to bring troops into the United States, and we're seeing reports all the time of increasing activity of foreign troops. Just the other day, I got a call from a guy in Tennessee upset about seeing Canadian vehicles running around the rural. He was a cop. He didn't know why they were there. His local sheriff got angry.
2 years ago, we had a state rep on in Tennessee. They had a gaggle of more than 10 federal agencies shutting down major highways. And the governor said, "You can't do that, get out of here." And Homeland Security said, "Go to hell."
Right. So now
I mean, we're talking checkpoints, and now they're Paul Watson in northern England. They had Eastern European, Ukrainian troops in a UN event running checkpoints. This is happening everywhere.
Well, certainly. So they're conditioning, they're flipping the founder's design on its head. They're taking away the sovereignty and the independence of local police departments. They're making them subservient to Washington, D.C. They're sending in liaisons from the military to work with the police, to condition them to work together, all the things you've been exposed to.
The threat fusion centers.
Sure, the fusion
I want to
centers,
go over
all
that, but I interrupted you. You said, "Hey, some people said no at Katrina."
That's right. We had a video. Sheriff Mack and I were doing a tour through Utah and has stumbled on this one sergeant. His name is Joshua May of the Utah National Guard. And we did an interview with him, and he talked about in his unit from the Utah National Guard, when they were deployed to Katrina, he and his entire unit refused to comply with any orders to confiscate firearms. They went to their commander ahead of time in a preemptive refusal and said, "If you give us these orders, we will refuse to obey them." And then the commander said, "Well, hold on, let me ask Big Army." So he sent the word up to the Big Army that they wouldn't do this, and the word came back, "Well, tell them, don't worry, we won't ask them to do that." So Big Army blinked. And why did that happen? Because Sergeant May was that one guy who was an outspoken constitutionalist. And so when the time came for that critical decision, the officers in his unit came to him. And even though they were lieutenants and captains, they came to the sergeant and said, "Sergeant, will you please go talk to the commander?" So he was the one who went over to talk to the commander. So one man in the right place made a critical difference. So our goal is to create...
Well, one man who's in the right is a majority.
That's right. Has a moral force far outweighing his numbers. And so there's an example where, because he did, convince the others in his unit to go along, he did what unfortunately Michael New was not able to do. An entire unit stood down, and they did not court-martial him. They didn't say anything about it.
Amazing. Stuart, I want to get your guests in here in a few minutes before we run out of time, and we could talk forever. That's why I'm always honored to have you on the radio show. The website is oathkeepers.org, also operationsleepinggiant.com. Speak more about the orders you will not follow, other points you want to make. I'm going to try to give you the floor, even though this is so intriguing and I've got a lot of questions. And then we can get emailed questions later. The next time you're back live on the radio, we can take those other questions then. But then tell us more about operationsleepinggiant.com.
Well, the focus there is, like I said before, we can't just say to the current serving, oh, please don't violate our rights, while we sit here on the couch and eat chips and watch Dancing with the Stars. Us veterans especially, but all Americans, have a duty to stand up and to restore the republic from the bottom up. All the institutions the founders intended us to use to be sovereign citizens. We must restore our state militias, even down at the county level. We must constitute sheriff posses to back our sheriff up. An economic collapse is coming. The veterans in this country have got to wake up and take personal responsibility for keeping their oath to defend the Constitution. And the way they do that is by strengthening themselves, their communities, and their states to get ready for the coming storm. And why that's so important is that when the storm comes, when the collapse comes, if we're strong in our states and our communities, if we're independent and self-sufficient, then there's no pretext to send in federal troops. If we're strong and independent, then the federal troops will go look at it and say, wait a minute, Mr. President, they don't need us. They don't need us, and they don't want us in their state, and their governor's telling us to stay out.
That's right. The globalists are counting on us being domesticated in organized chaos. And for those that don't know, you're not just making this statement here that the collapse is coming. We have the IMF World Bank documents from 2002. We've seen what they've done over and over again. We know their stated goal from Maurice Strong to the UN to the entire White House. They want a post-industrial world. It's the Wall Street crowd that's not free market waging war against independence. They want a vertical integration. They want to consolidate. Explain to people how important this collapse that we're already in is, because the system is planning to use it as their pretext to totally take over.
Well, they're letting us know right now. The IMF chairman has already told us they're going to replace the dollar as the world reserve currency and use the special drawing rights as the interim currency on the way to an official global currency. So they're telling us, what they're going to do. And so it's as though we're on the Titanic. It's already hit the iceberg. They've steered us into the iceberg, and they're going to sink the ship, which is our fiat system that we're riding on right now. And then when we're floundering around in the water, they're going to show up with the UNN Leviathan. It's going to come, and they're going to say, oh, come aboard this. This is your salvation. The next step is a world Federal Reserve. And they're telling us that's our only salvation. Well, the answer is to get back to the USS Constitution, which is still seaworthy. Old Ironsides is still right there. Let's get back to that, fix the sails, patch any holes, and sail at home. That's the answer. Get back to the Constitution. And that means sound money in our pockets. That means sound money in our states like Utah just did. That means revitalizing the military power of the people in our state militias. And that means making sure we're squared away with alternate communications, so when they use the internet kill switch, it won't matter, because we'll have our alternate system set up. And that means becoming strong in our states, having strong sheriffs who will do what Sheriff Mack's been urging for years and stand up, and strong legislatures that will say, no, we will stand in front of you, as Michael Boldin's going to talk about here pretty soon. We will stand in front of you as a shield under the Constitution and enforce the Constitution. If we don't preserve our state sovereignty and our national sovereignty right now, if we don't stand on the principles of the Founding Fathers, if we are weak and allow ourselves to be suckered in to this next stage of a world Federal Reserve, then liberty will die worldwide.
Very well said, Stuart Rhodes. Anything else you want to add?
Well, a key provision here that dovetails very well with the 10th Amendment Center and why I'm part of the Nullify Now tour is number 5. We will not obey orders to invade and subjugate any state that asserts its sovereignty, because that is the constitutional solution.
Now, we've got the provisions. Our founders went through the exact same garbage we're now going through. And every culture goes through this.
That's right.
I mean, the very same private central banks, even some of the same banking families that we're now fighting today are the people that our ancestors 235 years ago were fighting. It's incredible.
And they gave us the blueprint for resistance. They showed us the way. Everything in our Bill of Rights is the answer. Speak out.
They knew. They built this bear trap for the New World Order. They understood. They talked about it. I mean, it's incredible. The fight is on because other countries and nations have been successful. They've been wealthy. Most of them have not been successful because of tyranny.